Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and today my wife's tire had a nail in it. That is how my day started. So I got started a little bit late. So I'm getting that taken care of. So anyway, sometimes Fridays just start that way. Okay, now in this video, I love being able to tell you at the beginning of a video that I have a whoa or an aha moment. Well, this video has one of those, or at least it was for me. At the end of this video, you will get your whoa, aha moment, okay? And I love doing it. That's my favorite times to do videos is when I find one of those. And today I feel like I found a couple. All right, now this right here, as it doesn't seem on the surface like that big of a deal, but this tweet by Ashish Birla, who works at Ripple, this is a big deal. He says, when people tell me blockchain but no crypto, he's showing you an ad from Blockbuster before Blockbuster got decimated by Netflix. Netflix has an algorithm. We have a call algorithm. In other words, we've got actual people you can talk to in a building you can go to, and Netflix does not, and therefore we're better. Well, turns out the world made them realize, no, that wasn't the case. Now Netflix owns videos. Okay. And there is no more Blockbuster, but there's something else that you need to make sure you get out of this. What Ashish Birla is telling you in no uncertain terms is what we've heard for the last few years. And this is one of those question marks in the mind of many XRP investors and potential XRP investors. And that is, well, is Ripple, is it just going to be about Ripple? In other words, are the banks going to use Ripple but not XRP? Or is Ripple going to abandon? There's all kinds of scare tactics out there, folks. Is Ripple going to abandon the XRP and just go and do their thing? He's telling you in no uncertain terms, but it's not just him that's telling you. Brad Garlinghouse has told you before too. But the point that he's making here is that it's not just blockchain, like Jamie Dimon used to say. Well, it's not. We like blockchain. It's just not crypto or whatever. Yeah, whatever. So, but Brad Garlinghouse has told you this too. And for those of you that have never seen this, I'll play you a clip where he tells you in a Ripple drop that XRP is the heartbeat of Ripple.
Hard to predict today that are the foundation that will be laid upon that Internet of Value. XRP is part of the heartbeat of Ripple. It is the foundation of how we think about liquidity management, and a core problem that how the financial infrastructure works is around how liquidity is managed. Today, financial institutions are wired with pools of capital. They're called Nostro and Vostro accounts. And these are accounts that are pre-funded between financial institutions. And that's capital sitting dormant and not being used for either working capital or lending or what have you. By using a digital asset, you can enable liquidity in real time. This is transformational to how global financial infrastructure is wired. Every marathon starts with a single step.
Okay, so I wanted you to see that clip. All right, now this is, yesterday Ripple tweeted this out. XRP is a bridge between traditional financial institutions and the new world of fintech. And this is an article where they were, the CEO of BTC Markets has a couple of good quotes. XRP Crypto Wolf summarized them here. People are looking for alternatives to the status quo. As a bridge between two worlds of traditional finance and innovative technology, XRP has a big role to play. The amazing thing about on-demand liquidity is businesses using XRP for faster and cheaper cross-border payments are driving volume. So those were a couple of good quotes out of that article. Now, I got this from XRP Bart. He made me aware that SBI Holdings had put out their new financial results. This is fiscal year 2019. Fiscal year ended March 31st, 2020. Now, Brian Melancholy XRP directed me to someone who had found the good slides, and that is what I want to show you. They do. Some people, we've got a lot of smart people that do a lot of good work on Twitter, and so I'd like to send them followers when I get an opportunity and when they've put out good information. So let's send Brian Mellon Kelly XRP. He's at Mike Honcho _11. Give him a follow. And also the guy that provided the information. This is a handle called New Creation Capital, at New Creation Cap. He went and found all the slides I'm about to show you. The first slide is right here. Crypto Asset X. This is NSBI Holdings slides for their financial results this year. For 2019, Crypto Asset XRP was added as a new shareholder benefit option. So the shareholders of I guess SBI Holdings, XRP presentation flow, deposit XRP. So in other words, they had some kind of program where the shareholders would get XRP. Okay, but they're not stopping there. Let's see what other slides he's got here. SBI Group to gift XRP as the shareholder benefit, which leads to the expansion of SBI VC trade accounts. So what they were doing, I think, the way I understand it, is that they were giving they were gifting XRP to shareholders. And I think the way this was working is that this was a way to get the shareholders to have a reason to open an SBI virtual currency account. Okay, SBI VC trade account. And so when they're going to give them XRP, you got to open an account to do it. That's smart. And then I think Morningstar, I think is owned by Morningstar Japan, that is, I think is owned by SBI Holdings. They did a similar thing. This is interesting down here. Moving forward, the SBI Group's listed companies are planning to add XRP, which has practical and asset properties, to the shareholder benefit program. The way I read that is that the other companies SBI Holdings owns are going to do the same thing, which will mean more accounts for SBI VC trade and more exposure or more adoption of XRP in general. Very good stuff. And then there was this slide right here. The SBI, now listen to this. Words mean things, folks. Listen to this. The SBI Group cooperates closely with the US R3 and US Ripple, which could become the de facto standard of the next generation. Whoa. Through investment establishment of JV, and then it shows this chart here, developing projects that are not limited to the financial industry being by using smart contract-based technology, and it points to R3, all industry. They're talking about all the money right here, folks, all the money. Trade finance, real estate, syndicate, cross-border transactions, commodity, repo, bonds. Everything, all the money is described right here, folks. There's no other way to say it. Specialized in international remittances, pointing to Ripple. Okay, now I thought this was interesting too. Stuart XRP pointed this out. Ripple's podcast, and by the way, your whoa aha moments are still coming. You haven't seen it yet. Ripple's podcast Blockstars is being promoted on Twitter. Ripple's paying for their placement on Twitter. They must want to reach a wider group of users. And he's showing that it's being promoted on Twitter. And that means that they're trying to promote it and get Ripple seen by a wider audience than just the XRP community is what I'm assuming there. Okay. Now, this is from Michael at VAL5 Links. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde said she has no choice but to go beyond conventional policies to combat the current events. Yeah, you think? I bet she does. All right. Now, I wanted to make you all aware, for those of you that don't know, Consensus, it's called Consensus Distributed. Normally, this is held in New York City, and I was going to plan on going to it. And I had even bought a ticket or got a hotel to the thing. But turns out they're going to do it virtually. Now, this starts on Monday. It's May 11th through the 15th, and they're going to be doing this virtually. I think you can sign up to be able to watch it. I'm going to be watching it and maybe even recording some of the sessions so that I can play them on this channel. But I wanted to show you, I went through and I looked at some of the different people that are going to be here. I only found about 3 or 4 Ripple people, and the only Ripple speaker is going to be Stuart Alderati. But you can see there's different people that are Cameron Winklevoss. You'll see a lot of people. CZ Bonitz is going to be there. Chris Giancarlo, he's the digital dollar guy. There's all kinds of people that are going to be there. Jed McCaleb of Stellar is going to be there. A lot of the people from Stellar, they've got 2 or 3 sessions that they're going to be there. The other Winklevoss brother. But I did find it interesting that only Stuart Alderati is going to be a speaker there. And Ripple does not have a very big presence there. But I did a tweet about this. The only Ripple speaker I see is Stuart Alderati. The topic is crypto ready for the travel rule? Now, I wanted to, since he's going to be speaking on that, I went and found this. This is an article from actually yesterday. What the FATF, the deadline for complying with new crypto exchange rules, is coming. Now, the girl that they're interviewing here, her name's Amy Devine Kim. I think that's how you say that. She's from the Chamber of Digital Commerce, which we have talked about. But she tells you briefly in here, I just got one little clip that I wanted to play for you, where she talks about what this travel rule is, because they did a specific clip here on where they're talking about the travel rule in this FATF. So listen to this. It's 2 or 3 minutes.
Institutions have had to comply with the travel rule and these other guidelines for years. So this is not like a new thing at all. So explain why this is such a difficult and problematic issue for crypto VASPs to wrestle with here.
Yeah, well, this particular one around wire transfers is thorny because it requires the entity, so if you're an exchanger or a custodian of some type, to obtain and hold certain information from your customers that want to engage in transactions, and then to transfer that information with a transfer of funds or Bitcoin or any other kind of virtual currency. So that information then has to travel. That's where the word travel rule comes into place in the US and around the world. That information has to travel with the transaction to the receiving institution. There's law enforcement objectives to that because, that way financial institutions are required to have that information handy in their records, and then the receiving institution also has it. So there's law enforcement benefits to that, but as you can imagine, the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, isn't architected to carry that specific information. The information they want are things like your name, your address, the account number, that might be there. But those things aren't inherently in there because there's other indicators about who you are, but not your name or physical address, for example. In some cases, it could even include a social security number or taxpayer identification number. So there's a couple of challenges there. The primary one is this only applies between VASPs, so between regulated entities. So one regulated entity would have to know that there is another regulated entity holding the wallet at the other end of that transaction. We don't have in place a system that readily identifies the entire universe of wallets that are out there. Certainly, blockchain analytics companies do a great job at that, but it's not 100% currently. So how do you develop a system that enables the participants in it to know that the recipient is someone that is supposed to get this information? Because also, if you think about it, it's personally identifiable information. If someone can associate your name with your account, they can then know what your balance is and your transaction history because it's the blockchain, it's available online. So you don't want to send that information to a party that doesn't have an obligation to secure it.
Okay, that gives you a pretty good understanding. So you can see where all of this is going, and I believe, and don't quote me, but I believe that these guidelines, I believe all of this is going to be in place this year, like in June. And this is a big deal because the big money that's coming into this space, okay, without these kind of basic things in place, you couldn't really release all of the money. You couldn't really release in my opinion, the trillions and trillions of dollars that are going to come into this space without having this type of basic thing in place. So that I'm not the only way that anybody could track anyone as a holding digital assets is some long serial number. It's not going to work that way, folks. It's going to work where when you send it, everything's attached to it. So don't think for a minute you're not going to somehow you're not going to have to pay taxes or whatever. You're going to pay taxes. They're not going to the real money's not coming into this space till they have that in stone, folks. Not the real money, some of the money. But when all of the money comes in, all of this is going to be in place. And who has been working with regulators more than anyone? That would be Ripple. Okay, now let's get into your aha, whoa moments. Okay, the first thing, now first I want to tell you, this is not the first time that this video has been shown, but I found out some other things about this video that I think are very important, and I'm going to show them to you today. But for those of you that have not seen the video, and to round out the point, I need to show you the video. This is from XRP Yo-Yo. This says this guy's the Wolf of Wall Street that talks bullish and logic about the facts and the use case. Now, I'm going to...
There are some crypto...
Hold on one second. I'm going to get my volume down just a little bit. But first, here's what I want you to see, okay? I want you to see, and let me see, this is the actual video from YouTube. And I want you to see, this was done on September the 21st of 2018. And the people around this table, you got Jim Rickards. Now, Jim Rickards is really the guy that I want you to focus on, and this guy right here. Okay, while this, first of all, I want to make the point. When you watch this, you'll realize this guy knows something when it comes to Ripple and the XRP. This guy knows something. But the smartest guy at the table is this guy right here, Jim Rickards, who has told us, I've shown you all the videos. This guy has met with people at BlackRock behind the scenes. He's met with people in the United States government. He's met, you name it, 3-letter agencies. He's connected. He knows everybody. He knows what's going on. He knows what's going to happen. He knows all about the IMF. He's met with Timothy Geithner. He knows everything about what's going on behind the scenes. He's a gold guy. Now, another thing that is interesting about Jim Rickards is that he's like a lot of these guys. He never says Ripple. He'll bash Bitcoin all day long. He never talks about Ripple. He never says XRP. So when you're watching this guy who obviously, and after I show you this, I'm going to show you a couple more clips that you may not have seen out of this video. Then I'm going to show you who this guy is, and you're going to get at least 1 or 2 aha moments out of this. All right. So watch this. And while you're watching this guy talk, watch Jim Rickards' body language, because remember, Jim Rickards is not a guy who lets things that are inaccurate be said. He is more than happy to jump in and correct you when you're wrong. That's one thing that you should know about Jim Rickards. Watch his body language. While the guy is talking, he's not nodding yes or anything, but you can see just by his body language and the way he carries, he's not disagreeing with anything this guy is saying. Listen up close. And if you've never seen this video, this will be an aha moment in itself.
Those that are working with regulators and are working with banks.
I agree.
Ripple
right.
would be an example.
Ripple would be an example, right.
Now, this is and I can imagine in the next 5 years, instead of us doing sterling against the dollar or sterling against yen and doing these kinds of transactions, we'll do sterling versus Ripple. And the reason being, dollar right now is a 2-day settlement. With something like Ripple, you could do settlement in seconds. And I think that there's a future there where the guy that's trading spot FX today will be trading spot FX against Ripple in the future, in the next 2 or 3 years. So I think that Ripple has a great future because it's right now supported by all the banks and by all the regulators.
And it has an elastic monetary base, right? So
Well,
if we take that and you go to the blockchain ledger, if you take that concept that you're discussing, I have no problem with it. I agree with it. But you're talking about money. You're talking about transaction, medium of exchange. There has to be something behind it, and that's where I'm going to pull this conversation back to gold. There has to be some sort of reserve asset. The problem with fiat currencies right now is that they can print as much as they want. Digitally or whatever. It's not tied to anything, and so as a result, the value of the money can be negated. It can be destroyed over time, and it is destroyed over time.
I think one of the biggest sales pitches that folks that enjoy Bitcoin talk about is the fact that it's finite. And yet you have a fork, and boom, here's another currency based off of this one. You have another fork more currency, another fork, more currency.
The fact that it's finite
it's totally finite.
is actually one of the worst things about Bitcoin, and it shows that really smart developers and really smart engineers don't know anything about monetary economics. Because if you understand monetary economics, you don't want hyperinflation, you don't want money everywhere, but the money supply has to grow a little bit. As the economy is growing, if the money supply doesn't grow and the economy is growing, that's inherently deflationary. Each coin is going to get you more and more because you've capped it out. Well, if it's deflationary, if you look at, say,
Okay, so I wanted you to get out of that little clip, first of all, the obvious, which is this guy knows all about Ripple, and I'm going to show you how I think he knows all about Ripple and why it's going to change the world in a minute. But first, let's go back to Jim Rickards. Now remember, the second Bitcoin comes up, he piles on, but he never even begins to pile on while the guy's talking about Ripple. He just sits there quietly. He's not nodding his head negative like he's saying no. He's not nodding yes. It's almost like he's sitting there quietly because he can't say a word about it like half of these other people in this industry don't seem to be able to say a word about it. Now, it makes you wonder if he's signed NDAs with regard to Ripple in all these backroom conversations he gets to have, like everybody else has now. But remember, when you hear the letters DLT, that is Ripple. Okay, that when you hear distributed ledger technology, those are specific words that are used in conjunction with Ripple. Okay, they're not used with Bitcoin. Okay, so I went to find the actual video. Okay, and I think there's two clips where Jim Rickards lets you know that he knows that it's Ripple. Okay. That may or may not have been missed. I'm sure someone has shown this whole thing or parts of it that I didn't show just now before. But the first clip, I want you to, it goes from 1020 to 1050 on here. Listen up.
Do you have an opinion on Bitcoin? Because a lot of the younger crowd, not Bitcoin, but crypto in general, a lot of the younger crowd sees that as a replacement for gold.
Guilty.
I think it's hard to say crypto in general, other than the technology of the digital distributed ledger. But there are, last time I looked, 1,600 separate cryptocurrencies listed on major exchanges, and some of them are tiny, and some of them are frauds, no doubt about it. And Bitcoin's the biggest. Bitcoin has no use case other than tax evaders, terrorists, and worse.
Okay. So he said distributed ledger technology, okay? And then I think he says something similar again let me see if I can get to this little spot here. 1140 to 1208.
You know, it was 1982, I think. So, and all that message traffic is encrypted. So the dollar is a digital cryptocurrency, which shows that, but it doesn't have a distributed ledger, that's the real innovation. That's what makes crypto kind of interesting, is the digital distributed ledger, not the currency itself. And some of them, I think, have a future. The technology definitely has a future, but Bitcoin is a dead end. I mean, Bitcoin's non-scalable, non-sustainable. It's got criminal use cases. It was the biggest bubble in history, bigger than the...
All right. So it's not Bitcoin, just like Christine Lagarde said. It's not Bitcoin. It's not Ethereum. It's distributed ledger technology. And Jim Rickards, I think he knows it. Now remember, this is from September 21st, 2018. I think he knew it before he ever sat down at this table. And the reason I think that is because this is from February 21st of 2018. And you'll remember this. This is Jim Rickards presenting, I think, at the Cambridge House International.
President Trump and most recently, Chief of Staff John Kelly, they have all said the same thing. North Korea cannot have these weapons, period. There's no debate. General McMaster said acceptance is unacceptable. And yet North Korea is going for these weapons, so therefore we're heading for a war. I think you all know what that'll do to the price of gold. Look for the IMF to maybe have a crypto SDR on a permissioned hyperledger. And again, the BRICS are about on the brink of getting veto power in the IMF, so the IMF will not be able to bail out the world unless they say so, and their price might be the end of the dollar as the global reserve currency.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to that slide. Look at what he says here on his slide. IMF promoting a new world money called the special drawing right, permissioned hyperledger fabric version 1.0. So Jim Rickards, who is sitting at this table later in the year on September 21st, was giving this presentation in early 2018, and he already knows about Hyperledger Fabric and World Money, and he's talking about the how there will be a he just said a crypto SDR is possible. So what is Hyperledger, and where have we seen Hyperledger Fabric? We've talked about it on this channel. Well, first, 2017 to 2020, the Interledger Protocol becomes the standard protocol. Then from 2020 to 2025, there's Hyperledger Fabric right there as blockchain solutions for capital markets and trade finance. And we also see Hyperledger Fabric on this slide that is very important. Interledger enabling interoperability across platforms 2020 to 2025. Hyperledger Fabric is right here. The XRP ledger and the Interledger protocol right here. All the money. Now let's go back to here. Who is this guy? What is this guy's name? How does he know anything? Because I think I'm about to give you your second aha moment. How does this guy know? How did he know specifically what about Ripple back in 2018? Well, who is he? He's Douglas Borthwick, Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Business Development at INX Limited. Well, I've talked about this guy on this channel before a while back, I think. I don't know, but I know that I didn't find out what I found out today. So if we go through his resume, you'll see he's an FX guy. He was managing director of head of foreign exchange, managing director, head of trading and strategy. For this, he was head of coverage of the FX and macro, head of Latin America. Look, it's Standard Chartered Bank, which is just a node on the network away, according to Brad Garlinghouse. He was the head of Latin America FX options and NDFs, head of strategic trading, Merrill Lynch. And then at Morgan Stanley, look, head of deliverable G20 forwards. So this guy's got a resume. Look, he was at Lehman Brothers from 92 to 94 as well. This guy has the kind of resume where he might just know, but it's not just that. So we go back up to what this company is that he is with, and that is INX Limited. Well, I decided to go look at INX Limited. This is their website. Building the INX platform, trade brighter, invest in the future of finance, aiming to enable the listing and the trading of regulated security tokens and cryptocurrencies for institutional and retail investors. You'll see down here on their ticker that XRP is rolling with Litecoin and Bitcoin and different things. Well, as I normally do, and remember, as I go into this, folks, because I'm about to give you an aha moment, there are no coincidences in this. It's all tied together. All these people are tied together. They're all in the know. They all seem to know each other, and they all know things that you and I don't know. And so we have to do things like this and piece things together. Well, I went to their About Us. I wanted to see who was on their board, first of all. Well, the first interesting thing that I found that was on their board is this guy. If you watch Fox and Friends every morning on television here in the United States, Pete Hegseth, he's an advisory member to this, and he was a military guy in the United States, but he went to Harvard, and he's got the resume. But anyway, he's now on Fox and Friends every morning. I think he's got this big, huge "We the People" tattoo on his forearm that I saw him showing the other day when I was watching it. We also have Mark Yesko on the board. He's the Morgan Creek guy. He's a Bitcoin guy. And then these other people, I didn't really recognize any of them. But I kind of, aside from seeing him on here and Mark Yesko, I thought, okay, well, this is a dead end. Until I started scrolling back up to the top here. And as we get to the top up here, we see a guy by the name of Alan Silbert. And when I saw Alan Silbert, I said, no, surely not. So I did a search on Alan Silbert on Twitter, and what do you know? Barry Silbert's brother, that would be the same Barry Silbert, who runs the Digital Currency Group, who also is one of the first investors in Ripple, who also said that they were they were holders of XRP back in 2016, and later in 2018, all of a sudden said that XRP was not on his conviction buy list. And I went on to Twitter and asked him, why would you be owning it, and why would you own it in 2016, but now you act like it's not on your conviction list? Because he's under NDAs. They're under NDAs out the wazoo now, I think, all of them. But anyway, so his brother, just to tie this knot here, Barry Silbert's brother is Alan Silbert, who is executive managing director for INX. And INX is what this Douglas Borthwick, who's talking here about how Ripple in the next 5 years is going to change, everything's going to change. And I will play you that beginning, the beginning of that just one more time, just to reiterate what's about to happen with Ripple. And he knows.
There are some cryptos that are working with regulators and are working with banks.
I agree.
Ripple would be an example.
Ripple would be an example, right.
Now, this is and I can imagine in the next 5 years, instead of us doing sterling against the dollar or sterling against yen and doing these kinds of transactions, we'll do sterling versus Ripple. And the reason being, dollar right now is a 2-day settlement. With something like Ripple, you could do settlement in seconds. And I think that there's a future there where the guy that's trading spot FX today will be trading spot FX against Ripple.
Okay. So look at how serious his face is. I just want to say that one more time. I'm going to finish this video by telling you what I think I recall to be true. And that is the FX market is $5 trillion a day across the world. I think that's, don't quote me. I'm almost 1,000% positive that that's right. I didn't look it up. I've looked it up before, but the point is, I know the market is 5 trillion. I just can't remember if it's a day, a month, or a year. I think it's a day. 5 trillion a day. Just imagine what that would look like for XRP's use case. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that this guy knows, and I think Jim Rickards knows as well. And I know Barry Silbert knows. Thanks for listening.